All right, let's dive in. I missed you guys so much. First 2 weeks of shift, how were they? Wow, sounds awesome. Um, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm just so excited about this year. It is such an honor to get to teach on Wednesday nights, and I know Jonah's been carrying so much, and he's at Montgomery tonight, and so just to be back with you guys is such a thrill. I decided in 2026 just to be more honest with you about my own journey, that hopefully it can be an inspiration to you. I think a lot of you know that I walked through significant anxiety about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was able to hide it, and it debilitated me to a point where I, I could live normally in front of people and no one would notice. It just was internally really hard, and it was COVID knocked it out of socket. I took a group of high school kids to Honduras, and we were pretty sure we were gonna be stuck in the country for 6 weeks because they told us we would be stuck in so my body literally freaked out over 3 days. And it caused some significant fear in my brain in regards to just not being safe, not feeling safe. I remember there's a point where Lauren, our daughter, broke her arm pretty drastically, and it was also that season. So I was like worried about my kids, and I was worried about my safety, and I was worried about students. And during COVID, so you guys don't remember because you were younger. I know you remember COVID, but you don't remember the way that I remember it. During COVID, a lot of our high school kids were not able to meet. We couldn't meet. And so a lot of our high school kids would come to Missy and I's house, and they would share this sort of feeling of isolation and not feeling community. And their anxiety rubbed off on me. And I went through years where I was just internal. And here's the reality in 2026. I mean, God has healed so much of me. But in 2026, I still struggle to get up on stages and platforms. There have been moments where I'm teaching at senior Bible study or I'm teaching at shift, and I start to sense this panic of I can't escape. I'm stuck in front of these people, and my brain goes back to this thing that it's been wrestling with for 5 or 6 years. And it's so scary. Just by show of hands, because I just read a study that 91% of Gen Z has struggles with anxiety in some sort of way, and we can sort of dive into what that looks like. But just show of hands, if you feel like at some point in your last 12 months, you've wrestled with anxiety in some degree, will you just raise your hand boldly and just look around the room? Okay. So one of the reasons I was told by someone that one of the reasons why I needed to walk through it so significantly and so painfully, because it was so painful. In a lot of ways, I mean, just honest with you guys here tonight. In many ways, I never thought I would be doing this again. This to me felt scary. And the only thing that's really brought me through a process of healing is just talking about it and being honest about it. And the Lord has really shown me one of the reasons why he made me go through such a long process of healing with anxiety. And I'm still healing in so many ways. I still get really anxious on planes. I still get really anxious in front of people. I still get really anxious when I'm in a meeting and I can't get out and I can't escape. I feel the panic of I'm stuck here, and my brain starts freaking out. And I feel like the Lord is wanting me to talk more about that, not to keep pressing the same story, but for you to know that you're called to do brave things. That you're called to step out of what's uncomfortable. There's sort of an assumption with my life that Swayze's courageous and he's got things figured out and he's up there doing this and he's up there teaching, or those on the teaching team are doing that, those on the worship team have this gifting and I could never because I'm too scared, I'm too anxious, I could never do that. I just want you to know, I think God has decided to use the most anxious person in the room and say, okay, you go up there and do this. I need you to model obedience even when it's scary. And so I just want you to know this year, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are things that I know are things you're wrestling with. And I'm going to invite you to understand that what God wants to do is to bring you through a process of healing. He wants to lead you through a process of healing. I'm convinced, and I'm in the lives of so many people. I'm convinced that Jesus is the way. I've given my life to it. That's all I talk about. I'm not doing this because I'm this would be a great way to get paid, or this would be a great way to live my life. I've just sort of come to the realization after a lot of studying, there is no other way. Shay and I got to go yesterday. I made her go. There's a hospital visit that we got to send an email. Someone from the church and said, hey, will you go visit Mary Lou in the hospital? And I was like, Mary Lou is the cutest name I've ever heard. And we saw that Mary Lou's 85 years old, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be epic. And I said, Shay, let's go visit Mary Lou. And Shay's like, all right, let's do it. And so we got in the car, and we go visit Mary Lou right up here at the hospital. And we walk into the room, and Mary Lou's 85. She's in there with a lot of pain. And she's in there because she's scared. She's been living alone, and she keeps tripping and falling, and she's scared. No one's there to help her in her apartment. And she says, the hospital's the only safe place that I feel. It's the only place I don't feel anxious. And we walked in, and Mary Lou started. Shay, what did she start doing? She started crying. She's like, I just miss like my church. She's weeping with my church. And the fact that we showed up, like we were gonna come in like for 5 minutes and say, hi, we pray for you, love you, Mary Lou. And she's like, we stayed for an hour and a half, and Mary Lou cried. And the one thing that we walked away from that is that she said that I came to know Jesus at 75. And the last 10 years have been the best years of my life. And she would just weep. I just love Jesus so much. I just wish I loved Jesus so much. And there was one point in the conversation, she just said, I wish I walked with Jesus my whole life. Now, Mary Lou she's lived her whole life. She was a legal assistant. She lived a great life, successful life. She's lived to what a lot of people would go, yeah, you've done it well. You've lived to 85. You're still moving forward. And Mary Lou, in tears, was trying to convince me. And I'm like, I know. She's like, I know you're a pastor, but I need you to know it is like Jesus is everything. I wish I knew him my whole life. And what I have in front of me right now is a room full of people that have the opportunity to have something Mary Lou never had. That's to know Jesus your whole life. He only gets sweeter. He only gets kinder. He is everything that your brain is saying maybe he's not. He's everything. He is the great healer. He is the great burden taker. He is the God that meets you at the altar and goes, oh yeah, you can lay that down. He is everything your brain is saying maybe he's not. He's everything. And every time we open up the Word of God, what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, children that I absolutely adore, there is a way to live that makes your whole life walking with me more fulfilling. And story after story that we find, even in the Old Testament, are going to point to the character of God and the invitation for you to live a life that's actually unbelievably fulfilling. Walking with Jesus, with my wife and my 2 kids, is the best thing in the planet. And you're a teenager, but you're a decade away from making those type of decisions. And you don't want, I'm running into too many adults that have wasted most of their life thinking, no, let me figure it out on my own, when the reality is God's way, even when you're 85, you look back and go, this was it. I just wish I'd done it my whole life. Tell the person next to you, the sermon title tonight is called Lay Down the Bricks. Go ahead, lay down the bricks. Good. Let's see how much time I have. Lay down the bricks. I got 13 minutes, here we go. If someone looked up your social media tonight, this isn't a slam, I'm being serious, think about it. If someone looked up your social media tonight, your TikTok, your Instagram, your Snapchat, whatever you use, Facebook, Dennis, what do you hope, I'm on Facebook too, what do you hope that they see? And here's what they're gonna see. If someone wants to open up your social media account, they're gonna see what you think's funny. They're gonna see what your opinions are. And you guys aren't there yet, but a lot of times adults will put like their opinions politically or their opinions about anything in life. They're gonna look at your aesthetics. Anybody have a Pinterest account? Oh, dang, that's way more than I thought. They're gonna look at your aesthetics. They're gonna read your captions and your responses. They're gonna look at your repost and what you repost, and they're gonna look at the things that you don't talk about. Because even your silence on social media is saying something about you. Social media is basically the digital version of who you want to be, or at least who you're portraying the world to be. And that's fine, it's normal. We all have them. Social media is how you present yourself to the world. It's how people decide what you're like before they ever meet you. There's so many people that are like, Swayze, we heard about this, but I never, I looked you up, I heard your sermon do this, and I'm like, that's terrifying, but they're making decisions about you just by looking you up. So many in college are like, yeah, my roommate's this, and everybody's like, oh, let me check real quick and see what she looks like, he looks like. It's whatever shows up when someone types your name into the search bar. And whether you realize it or not, every post that you make is saying something. Every post is saying, this is who I am. This is what matters to me, and this is how I want to be known to the world. And that's sort of a generation that you're raised in that a lot of us don't really have a concept of that are older. And on social media, many of you are trying to be the one that's super funny, or some of you are trying to be the one that's like really deep, or some of you are trying to be the really like unbothered, I don't care person. Some of you are trying to be the highly successful. Some of you are trying to be the attractive one. Some of you are trying to be the spiritual one. Got all the quotes and the sermon things and all that sort of thing. The desire to be known, to be seen, and to remember, though, is not a Gen Z thing. It's a human thing. Long before TikTok, long before Instagram, long before phones or followers, people have spent all of eternity, all of history, trying to make a name for themselves. In the Bible tonight, I want to look at a story that's a little weird, but the teaching team decided this is what they wanted to share. A famous story in the Old Testament about happens when humans are trying to make a name for themselves. Tonight I want to talk about how our desire to make a name for ourselves is really dangerous, but the desire that God wants to make a name for you is so good. Every human in the room, if you're breathing right now, wants significance. That desire is not sinful, it's not weak, it's actually not even wrong. You were created in the image of God. Of course you want your life to matter. As I spoke earlier, you actually have enormous purpose. So I'm not trying to say that what you're portraying on Instagram is wrong or you're desiring to make a name for yourself is wrong. I'm just actually saying that's actually built into you. You want to be some part of something bigger than yourself. You want to be a part of a larger narrative and a larger story. But here's the tension. You get to decide right now that you can pursue significance in the way that God sees you, or you can pursue significance in the way the world sees you. And those two things are different. The reality is, if you were to look at your soul and you were to say to me today, I'm so tired, Swayze, it could be school, because school's hard. You jump back in, 3-day weekend, here we go. No real insight till spring break. You're tired because life's overwhelming. Things are going on in your home, or your friends are like this thing. You've got all these things piling up, and you're dancing over here, and you're doing this over here, and you're auditioning over here, and you're trying to plan for this, and you've got assignments due, whatever. Those are realities of why you're tired. But the reason most of you in your generation are tired is because you are exhausted trying to hold up the image that you are portraying. It's unbelievably exhausting to hold up the image of what you're trying to tell the world you are. Most sort of social scientists can only point to one thing that makes us, and I include myself because I'm in the middle of it, that makes us as a people significantly more anxious, stressed, depressed than any other generation before. And it's simply, you and I have something in our pocket that we're trying to maintain. And that is an image to the world that our reputation stays intact, that we're trying to prove to people who may not even care, that we're trying to make sure our name stands for something impressive. And the Bible tells a story that explains exactly why that pressure over time will crush you. Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through 9. It'll be on the screen. Noah Bear's going to toss it up there. Here we go, verse 1. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech as people moved eastward. This is right after the flood. God had brought judgment upon the earth because of the sin of man. He sees Noah and just says, oh, there's something in Noah. I cannot give up on mankind. Makes a covenant, builds an ark. A people survive. They come off. They begin to populate, and they move eastward. They found a plain in Shinar. It's a place in the Middle East. No, we'll keep going here. maybe, and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a" what? Name for ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be scattered over the face of the earth. This is called, anybody just say it out loud, what is the story? Tower of Babel. Now, what's interesting about the story of Babel is that historians have argued about what the Tower of Babel is about historically. Most have sort of said the story of Babel is about a people that decided they, like Adam and Eve, wanted to be God. And the way to be God is, if God's in the heaven, we're going to build a structure, a tower with bricks so high that we can reach we have the same access to heaven as God does. We know in the ancient, they believed that God was somewhere up high. And they were going to build a tower high enough where if they could get to where God was, they were at same equal authority as God. That's what some historians say the Tower of Babel is about. And God scattered them and moved them around. Some historians say that the Tower of Babel is about height because the leaders of the city knew if he could keep everyone together and God was to bring another flood, they could have the leaders get high enough where the judgment of God wouldn't reach certain. So if God was to bring another flood upon the earth, the Tower of Babel would be high enough, the floodwaters would sort of make their way through and no one would be hurt that were up in the tower. This is one way to escape the judgment of this God. My favorite interpretation is a guy out of Kentucky who's a professor at Asbury Seminary. Here's what he says. He's an expert in the ancient Mesopotamian ages. And he said all these towers had a weird name. They're called ziggurats. It's a different word, but they have all these towers. And here's what the ancient sort of Mesopotamian believed about these ziggurats, these towers in this Tower of Babel, these massive things that reached into the sky. They would build a tower next to a temple. Okay? They built a Tower of Babel, would have a temple right next to it within a city. And their belief was not that mankind would make themselves up to God or that mankind would go up into the heavens to escape the floods. They believed, and throughout ancient history, when these towers were built, temples were built next to them because they wanted God to have access to come down again. They wanted to give God this sort of executive elevator back down, or God these stairways to come back down to earth. And here was the belief in the ancient history. If we build a tower up to God, he'll come down, and then he'll come down to the bottom of the stairs, and he'll go right into the temple. And then if God is in the temple and God is in the city, then whatever he is powerful of, we will have hold of. And they believed that a tower would give God access to come down upon the earth. And what was the reason for God being on the earth? Anybody? Because they wanted to make a name for themselves. What we see in Genesis is a direct cry for them to go out into the world and to carry the image of God all over the world and to multiply, be fruitful. In fact, after the flood in Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 and verse 7, God reminds them, no, go multiply. Bless the earth with your life. And here the next story of the people coming out of Noah's lineages, they sort of go together and say, let's not spread out. Let's speak the same language. Let's stay together. Let's build a city. Let's build walls so that if a flood comes, nothing. Let's build a tower so that we can escape. Let's build a tower so that God will make his way down into our city once again like he did in Adam and Eve. He'll dwell in our temple, and if God's with us, we'll make a name for ourselves. Now, what happens? We see in the story, it's really interesting that God comes down, all right, but he comes down out of heaven, looks around and says, this is not right. If they're able to think like this, and he changes their languages and spreads them throughout the earth. So here are a couple points if you're writing. Point number 1. All of us in this room are building Tower of Babels. The people of Babel are not villains, they're us. We are all building towers. Here's what your tower might look like. Really good grades. You're the smartest. You know it. You've struggled with it. But that's where you put all of your identity in. Sports. You're one of the most athletic person in the room. Everyone knows you. We see you. We watch you. That's your tower and you're building it. Popularity. You carry a popularity. You thrive in the popularity. That's your tower and you're building it. Being a good Christian kid. I don't party. I come to Shift every Wednesday. This is my community. I don't mess up like those people. That's your tower. And you've been building that brick by brick. Being successful in whatever you do. Every tower says the same thing. If I build this image of me, God will come down and he'll bless it. A lot of us come to church and we build these towers. And what we want with these towers, listen, I don't mean to rub anyone wrong because I just remember this. I'm going to take someone that's in sports. Here's what we actually want in sports. We want to build a tower of athletic feet, and then we want God to come down and bless us so that we can make a name for ourselves. So we come to church and we're like, God, I'm in sports and I recognize that I need you because I'm really struggling with insecurity in the inside. And so God, I built this tower of what I want everyone to see. Will you come down and bless me because I want to make a name for myself. I want everyone to know who I am. This is the human condition. This is dangerous in church. We build spaces and places, and pastors build these identities. I mean, like, I'm thinking, like, what kind of tower is Swayze built? Just like this tower that built up, like, I want everyone to know that I've got things together and that I'm a good leader and that I've got things under control. And no, I don't struggle with anxiety anymore and things are perfect in my life. And what I want you to do, guys, I want you to come down. I want you to bless my ministry because I want Swayze to make a name for himself. I want to be successful in ministry. This is the human condition. So I'm just saying, welcome to the club. Since history began, mankind has wanted to build brick by brick the sort of tower of everyone goes, look at me. And then what do we want God to do? We want God to bless the tower we've created. We want to become famous. We want to become known. If social media is doing anything, we want to be known. We want people to look to us. There's something on the inside of us. Here's the problem with towers, is that they shape you while you build them. A tower built on performance will create insane anxiety. If everything's about how well you're performing, you are in a constant state of fear. A tower built on comparison and popularity will create incredible insecurity. Gossip will overflow out of your mouth, not because you really hate her, because the only way for you to maintain your popularity is to make sure everyone around you is lower. A tower built on perfection creates enormous shame when you finally mess up and you don't get that A. You don't make that team. Your parents are disappointed because you didn't reach it. These towers that we build, you're actually not building, they're building you. I was talking to a sweet friend today who was a gymnast for most of her life. Built her identity on being a gymnast, built her whole world on being a gymnast, and then ran into an injury, and the tower that she built came crashing down. Point number 2, what happens when your tower comes down? What happens when your tower comes down? It says in the story that God confused their languages. The thing they built, he scattered them across the earth. Most people read that as punishment. God was angry. He decided to punish them. But most scholars believe it wasn't punishment, it was mercy. Because God knew something that they didn't know. A tower built to carry your worth will eventually collapse. Any tower that you build that's about you will not last. God isn't threatened by your tower, he just knows he's trying to protect you from yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing God can do is tear down the tower you've been building. And so I asked her, I said, do you think it's possible that this sort of thing that you thought you wanted in being in gymnastic, do you think that's the kindness of God? And her response was absolutely. Because he knows the tower of image you're building will never fulfill you. And my question tonight in the room that's so painful, is there a place in your life that God has torn down something that you wanted him to bless? Can you think right now, is there anything in your life that God seems to have torn it down and you're like, God, why? I wanted you to come down and bless it. I wanted you to make me the perfect I wanted you to make me the best. I wanted you to set me apart, God. I wanted you to come down and make my name great. And God's going, you'll be miserable. So is there anything in your life that God has torn down that you wanted him to bless? That's hard to face. But my question tonight is, story from the Tower of Babel, could it perhaps be God's kindness? And point number 3, and we'll end with this, is that God is not against making your name great. Let me say it again. God is not against making your name great. A lot of people read this story and go, well, our life can't be about making our name great then. It must be all about God, and in some ways they're right. Well, maybe life isn't about me. I just need to be hidden, and it doesn't matter. And whatever God wants me to do, yes, that's right. But what's fascinating about this story is that just a chapter later, in Genesis chapter 12, a guy named Abram shows up on the scene, and God says to Abram, listen to this, Abram, I'm gonna make you a great nation. I'm gonna bless you, and I'm gonna make your name great. So you're like, what happened? The Tower of Babel, they wanted God to come down on the earth to control. Come on down, God. Bless what I built. And God goes, no. You're like, well, I guess he doesn't want our name to be great. And then the next chapter, he comes to Abram and says, I'm gonna bless you and I'm gonna make your name great. You're like, wait a second. I thought you didn't want our name great. Now you want our name great? What are you doing? What God is saying in Genesis chapter 11 and 12 is this. God says, I will make your name great. Where the Tower of Babel grabs control of God's blessing. God, you must. I built this. This is about me. I've decided. It's my control. It's what my parents want. In Genesis chapter 12, God gives after what's been surrendered. The Tower of Babel is about humanity reaching upward, saying, God, I want to control my future. I want to pick what you bless. I want to make my name great because of what I've chosen to do with my life. Where Genesis chapter 12 is a man who wanted nothing to do with adventure, who God came straight to and said, I know you didn't choose this, but I chose this over your life. Here's the pattern of the kingdom. When you stop trying to make your name great, God will take it, and he will give you a more fulfilling life than you could have ever created on your own. It's almost weird, because everything inside of you wants to live a life with purpose and greatness. And sometimes you can read the story and go, I guess God doesn't want me to be great. But the reality is he doesn't want you to make you great. He wants you to give up the control and the desire for everyone to think you're living some sort of majestic life where you're like, God, bless this thing I'm doing. God, do this thing I'm doing. What God is wanting you to do is to surrender to his plans and to trust that the life that he has for you is fulfilling. God doesn't erase your identity, he redeems it. He refuses, though. He refuses to let your life be built on self-glory. So here's the choice in front of you tonight as we head towards small groups. You can keep trying to build the tower and asking God to come bless it. God, I'm doing this thing, I need you to come and bless it. Or you can stop building. You can stop and lay down the bricks. And trust that God already has you on a life, already has you in community, already has you on a plan that you can let go. You can continue to chase recognition and your soul be tired, or you can surrender and receive formation. You can continue to try to protect your image that you're trying to show the world. It's exhausting, or you can trust the identity that God has already given you. One path leads to exhaustion, the other leads to life. It's never been different, and you cannot escape it. Some of you tonight need to stop building your tower. Not because you're lazy, not because you're tired. It's because you're tired of proving. You're tired of performing. You're tired of needing the tower to stand. And what God is inviting you to do is to lay down the bricks, to release the pressure that you put on your life, to trust that your life matters because he says it is, not because of the accomplishments that you make. I know how hard that is to hear. And I know for many in the room, you're mad at God because whatever tower you built came crashing down and you don't understand why he made it come crashing down. And I'm telling you, that's not his judgment, it's his kindness. He knows it. If you got everything you wanted, you wouldn't be fulfilled. You would just have to keep maintaining it. What God wants to do is he does want to make your name great, but he wants to do it. He doesn't need you to do it. He doesn't need you to figure out your plan. He doesn't need you to figure out your plan. Greatness comes over time when you're following Jesus. Greatness comes over time with following him slowly with faithfulness. Greatness comes over time of knowing Jesus over and over. And then all of a sudden, one day people go, can you believe Becca? Like her heart for missions, the way that she serves people, the marriage that she and Carter have. Can you believe it? Can you believe Mason, the way he loves his brother and the way his heart for people is in worship? People are saying highly of your name, and it's not about you. It's not about your giftedness, your talent, or what you brought to the table, or you're like, God, come and bless this thing I'm building, or this empire, or this image. No, it's you faithfully serving the name above all names, and then as you're serving his name, your name becomes great, not because of what you built, but because of his blessing on your life. People speak highly of you, not because you're something fascinating, because the God of the universe has taken your sort of feeble, fragile life and said, no, I'm going to make your name great. See, the deep desire to be known is okay, but when it's grasped in your hand and you're controlling it and you're creating your own destiny, it falls apart. Live a life of following Jesus over a lifetime, and you're going to wake up at 16, 18, and the way people begin to talk about you as a Jesus follower, you're going to go, that's crazy. It's because God is using your life, the Spirit of God inside of you. I do, and I hate to keep pointing to him. I think of the Woodley, Dennis and Joyce's life. You walk around this building, this church, I hear about what Dennis does, about how he serves here, or he's at Champion Project here. Dennis doesn't want recognition. Dennis's desire is not just to have his name great. He's following Jesus. And when you follow Jesus and people recognize it, and the Spirit of God is working, and you've surrendered trying to be famous, trying to be known, you're like, I just want to hiddenly serve you. You can't help but have your name be lifted up because it's Christ in you. It's Christ in you. Do that with your life.